Welcome back, guys. Got another special episode. Every episode has been special thus far, but this is the actual really, really special one because it's my sister's partner, we'll call you, Jimmy Hartnett. How you doing, man?
Doing well.
And the whole reason why we're having you on right now is because you have a big announcement, right? You and
I have
Paige
a
have a
big
big announcement?
announcement.
Yeah.
I don't know. You tell me.
Oh, I thought you guys had gotten engaged. No?
That would be knowledge to me.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, maybe someday. Um,
Just trying to stir the pot right when we get started here, huh?
Yeah, man. So Jimmy and I, we see a lot of each other. Paige and my wife Joe are really, really close. And Jimmy and I, we've just spent a lot of time together since the pandemic and COVID. We started doing
A lot of Halo
Zoom,
2.
a lot of Halo 2 now, and then we were starting to do a lot of stuff on the Switch. So we do like Mario Kart and stuff. But I think it's kind of evolved into more of like an actual friendship between our two couples, which has been pretty cool because it started all in the pandemic.
Yeah. No, it's definitely been a positive from the pandemic for sure.
Right on. Um, so I think it's going to be a funny conversation because our communication styles, as I have said many, many times, are very, very different, and our brains work in very different ways. And a lot of times that leads me with being frustrated and you being like, "Why are you making fun of me?" So I'm excited to have like a safe space where you might get some jabs here and there, but this is a very personal thing, and I really appreciate you coming on just to talk about it because I know that we really haven't touched on it. I think I know where you land, but I'm just curious to see where this goes. So thanks for
Yeah,
for making the time and thanks for coming on.
of course, of course. And as far as speaking the way that you like to speak, I'm gonna do my best to try and keep it Miles talk the whole time.
No, you do
No
you,
Jimmy
man.
talk.
This is you do you. I'll cut you off if I need to. Um, all right, man. So you come from a Catholic family, and I don't really know where you end up. I mean, you literally you have an uncle named Uncle Vito,
Yep.
so it makes sense that you would come from a Catholic family in that regard. But you personally, I mean, where are you at today from a religion and faith perspective?
Yeah, so from either side, I'm Irish Italian, so pretty much 50-50 with a little bit of extra sprinkled in. So I got the Catholic from both sides. My mom's side is the Italian one, so they are practicing, but not going to church every single day practicing. Where my father's side, the Irish side, is practicing and not to like full throttle, but they do regularly go to church when it's convenient to them. So both of which Roman Catholic. Me myself today, I would consider myself an agnostic. So I really don't know, but it's been interesting to kind of discuss with my relatives and kind of see where they came from to help that kind of help shape me to bring me to be where you know what I'd rather just not know right now.
Hmm. So when you were growing up, I mean, were you going to church at all, or was it not even a part?
It really wasn't a part, so it was surprising because on my dad's side, he's got six other siblings, all of which who have religion in their life in some way, shape, or form. Um, so at every family party and things like that, I would kind of discuss with them, and they would discuss with me. So my grandma, she's 95 right now. Every time I saw her, she'd bring it up. Be like, "Have you gotten to church? Have you tried?"
It's
Basically,
such
like,
a
"Have you tried?"
such a grandma thing
And
to say.
yeah, exactly. So for I did try a handful of times with her specifically because she was one of the proponents of me getting involved with the church. So a handful of times I did go to mass with her and for other various occasions, but most of my exposure and actually being in church has come from my grandma and just discussing with my relatives. But out of all seven of her children, my dad is pretty much one of the only ones who does not practice. So him being my father has been a big influence on me, meaning a lot of his ideas have kind of shaped my ideas today.
Hmm. I mean, so growing up, I mean, was it even talked about? Like, did your mom try to get you to go to church? Try to get you have a little brother, Colin. Like, was it talked about at all?
Yeah, so my mom was more she was more for going to church. So in her family, they would do things like if someone was sick, they would go get holy water and bring it to that person who's sick and stuff like that. So I would say that on my mom's side, she liked it for the idea of the comfort that comes from organized religion, and like the thoughts of afterlife and stuff that come with it. Um, so she kind of was a proponent for it, but my dad, on the other hand, had kind of strong feelings about the church and what, um, not necessarily religion, but just the church in general. And those sort of things kind of shaped me a little bit more. So he had been kind of opposed to the church because he grew up with it the whole time, meaning he went to the religious schools where he was kind of slapped on the hands by the nuns and the whole 9 yards. And he was kind of exposed to some things there that made him really not believe in the church necessarily. So at first it wasn't the faith, but the church itself, the priests, the the nuns, everyone, you know. So that's what his problem was at first. Um, so
So he
from the
believed in
get go,
God, but like the institution wasn't something that was jiving with him because of Catholic school, because of things he experienced.
exactly, exactly. And he was the second youngest out of the remaining siblings, so he had heard from all of his older siblings how it was even worse for them, at least at the
Mm,
schools that they were going to. So I think that really shaped him and his ideals in the beginning, and then as time went on and he got older, he started hearing things, negative remarks about the church, and kind of burying stories and stuff like that for things that they were trying to cast in a better light or something like that. And those sort of stories really had an effect on him as well. And those were some of the things that we discussed as I was growing up too. So obviously as a kid growing up, you have the thoughts of, well, all my other relatives are going to church, why aren't we? And he kind of laid some things out like, well, you're allowed to do whatever you want to do, but these are the reasons why we don't necessarily do it right now, or didn't really introduce it into your life. I was baptized, but I did not do confirmation or anything like that. So he did admit to me that we did baptize you because your grandmother was going to lose it if you weren't.
yeah,
So mostly we did it because grandma really wanted it. But as far as going through confirmation and things like that, we just didn't want to introduce you to that as a kid and let you decide when you were older if that's something that you wanted to do.
yeah,
So
that's really cool. I mean,
yeah,
so when did you find out that you were baptized? What age were you?
I honestly was probably older. I would probably think like 12 or something like that, because it was so out of my life that I didn't even think about it. Like again, I saw my relatives who did it, but I didn't know about baptisms really because I didn't go to church. So, and I was so little when it happened to me that obviously I didn't remember, and confirmation stuff like that. In all honesty, with Paige's dad, your dad being a pastor, I've learned a lot of the things that I know about religion and Bible and biblical text from talking with your dad, talking with Paige and stuff like that. But a lot of the other stuff is I'm not sure about. I've
Yeah.
never really dived in.
What? So when you found out that you were baptized, I mean, what did that even mean to you? Was it meaningless? Was it something that was exciting, or were you upset? What was the conversation around that?
I guess it made me feel kind of like, and I still kind of feel like this a little bit, like it's almost like a sham. Like we did it for images, for how it looked and stuff like that. But to me, to say that I'm religious in any way, shape, or form, or have anything to say about other people's faith, I can't say anything about it. Like I mostly keep my mouth shut because at the end of the day, I don't feel like I'm actually part of it at all. So I can't have anything to say about it.
Did you know what being baptized was from a Catholic perspective?
Basically, I mean, even today, it's just all I know of it is like so that you could be accepted into the gates of heaven.
Hmm.
Um, and stuff like that to me, so as an adult, I will say, like, hearing stuff like that, I have a very analytical mind when it comes to stuff like this. Like, I can't help but think about, like, but what about this? But what about this? I'm always thinking about, but what, you know. Um, so when I hear stuff like, oh, you accepted God into your heart, you going to church and you got baptized, that gets you into the gates of heaven. To me, that just, to be a good person is what matters to me. Having all of
Hmm.
these steps that you must follow in order to be considered a good person just seems like a reach for me. And sometimes, again, not
Yeah.
putting anyone down, but in my mind, the idea that you have to have these steps for someone to be accepted in the afterlife like this, it just, I don't know. It just seems like if there was a God, it wouldn't be someone who wouldn't be merciful on something like that.
Yeah. I can't say that I think or feel any different. But I mean, for you, it sounded like it was kind of like the lack of a belief system that was almost your belief system as a kid, growing up, like your dad saying, this is what me and your mom believe or whatever, as this is what I believe even, but we don't want you to be a part of this church and this, entity, this thing. What age were you, if any, where you started to think about this stuff for yourself? I mean, or was it something that was just kind of always in the background?
Honestly, I think it was mostly in the background. For the times that I ran into friends that were especially religious, or just different from me, I would kind of bring it up, mostly just from an inquisitive standpoint. And basically, all of this inquisition in regard to it didn't never really led to me taking any steps towards joining a church myself. When I was in college, I did go to our Lutheran services that we had a handful of times. I did go probably like 3 times in my 4 years there. And when I went there, it was nice, and I liked the pleasantries and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it just nothing really struck a chord with me to where I was like, let's hit the ground running with this. I really want to dig deep and like see what it's all about. So I guess with all my questions and everything, talking to family, friends, and actually being in a church setting, it's never really struck a chord with me to take that next step.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in that either. I think it's kind of a situation with our generation where people get baptized because grandma or mom throws a fit if it doesn't happen, and it's just what you have to do. And their belief is that if you're not baptized, especially Catholics, um, I think I could be wrong in this, but I'm pretty sure that infants and newborns, if they pass away, go to purgatory, and if they're baptized, they avoid that. I think. Boy, some Catholics are really shaking their head in their cars right now if they're hearing this and that's wrong. But I'm pretty sure that's what happens. And if so, please, please, please tell me if I'm wrong. What drew you to church then in college? Was it Page? Was it any outside forces?
Just that it was a Lutheran school and it was available. So I believe a couple of friends had gone, those who were a little bit more religious. I just kind of wanted to go with. Um, so I think that's what happened initially. And again, I didn't go many times, but mostly just to say that I was exposed at some point. Before that, I'd only gone the handful of times with my grandmother, like I had said before. So just to try to get a little bit more exposure as I was getting older to see if my perspective had changed. But at the end of the day, I think for me, the hardest part is it's hard for me to believe anyone or any religion has all the answers.
Yeah.
So to me, when I go into those places, or just different religious settings, and I hear whatever sermon, kind of saying like these are the definite rules, in my head, I'm just like, man, no one, how could anyone know what what rules to follow? Even if we do have ancient texts, in my mind, like
Hmm.
those can't be 100%. Even the translations, like if they're translated accurately, like so to me, again, it's hard to believe that any one religion, one person, one group has all the answers. So when I'm sitting in those settings, I just can't believe because I have that doubt. It makes it hard to like have faith in any aspect of it.
Would it be fair to say that you were, especially those times, maybe not so much going with your grandma, but going to the Lutheran church, which is a brand new experience, brand new denomination for you? Would it be fair to say that you were looking to be proven something? Like you needed to be shown some sort of evidence or facts that would make you want to engage more? Or what do you think you were like searching for?
Um, I think that I was just seeing if I could grab onto some aspect of it. So like I'm saying, like it was difficult. I was just trying to see if there was going to be one thing said that really caught my attention. Um, but I guess I couldn't help but be critical of everything the whole time. So I guess maybe it was my attitude towards it from the beginning that kind of made me biased towards the rest of everything. So where I didn't nothing really did strike a chord with me or ever would. I'm not sure, but I just wanted to tell myself that I did try, and not just follow or toe the line of my dad's beliefs.
Right.
I, so
Do
I,
you,
I guess
well,
go
I was
ahead.
going to say, would it be fair to say that you went into the experience with preconceived notions that you were looking to be proved wrong?
Yeah, like I guess I was if I wasn't necessarily hoping for it, but if anything was going to change my perspective, it would have to be something pretty jarring that's like, oh wow, that really changed my thinking on this. Like I was it would have to be something really big, I think, at that point to really jar me out of my current beliefs or lack
Yeah.
of them.
What if you're sitting in those pews and you're listening to this, you're taking it in, you're already like, man, I'm checking out. I don't buy any of this. But on the flip side, what would have had to have been talked about? Like what topics were you looking for? Or was it just anything? Just, just trying to grab a piece of anything that came at you, or were you actually like specific things looking for like, okay, I have an answer, I have a question for this, and I'm looking for an answer for it.
I guess a better way to describe it is I was trying to gain a level of comfort or see if I could.
Hmm.
Um, like I was saying before, when I would go into churches, I would feel like an imposter, like a wolf in sheep's clothing sort of thing, in the sense that I knew that going into these places, my beliefs are pretty kind of shored up, meaning that I already have no strong notions towards a God, towards the Bible's teachings, things like that. So when I'm sitting there, especially in cases where I wouldn't be able to take communion or things like that because I did not go through oh my gosh, I'm forgetting it now. Confirmation.
Hmm.
Uh cases like that, it just I would just feel like such an imposter. Like, why am I here if I didn't take the steps beforehand? So I guess when I was going, I was just trying to see, can I get over that? Can I get past that? Is there some comfort in going? Can I get over the feeling that I'm an imposter here? Because a lot of the time, people, um, when I ask people in the past about why are you religious, et cetera, et cetera, a lot of the things people bring up is the community and how it feels to go to church, to have uh, a couple hours a week to take a breath and to feel comfortable in a community of people that are welcoming you. So I guess that was mostly what I was looking for because I knew at that point, as far as specific religious teaching and stuff, I don't think anything would have grabbed my attention. But a
Yeah.
community and a comfortable feeling like that might be something that would.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think most people I talk to, like community is a huge part about it. If you're not like all the way gung ho, right? Like you might be a little bit in, a little bit out. There's aspects of it. You believe in a God, but maybe not like specific teachings or whatever. And like the community is what makes people stay. So that resonates. I totally get that.
On
Um,
the flip
what
side,
were,
that scares me too, though.
how
Like
so?
because I have the belief that a group of people is less willing to take on a new thought rather than an individual person. So an individual
Yeah.
person can be smart, but a group of people it's like mob mentality in the sense that if one person disagrees, everyone disagrees. So
Hmm.
uh, that also, there's a flip side to that too. That's another reason why like maybe I would never be a good part of it, because I wouldn't want to ever have like a mob mentality or get pulled into, and this is a terrible word to say and I'm not going to use it for to describe anyone, but this is where my mind, like cultish ideas where you're just
Yeah.
following whatever you're told. um, and I feel like sometimes people can get lost in that sense of community and start doing that
Yeah.
not without even trying.
Yeah, I can
So
get
that's a
that.
fear too.
I think I would push back a little bit on that though, of like, you can have herd mentality with anything of like-minded people, right? Like it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be religion. Like you can have herd mentality with, I mean, I always like to say you're a scientist, and I don't know if you would say that you're a scientist, but you worked at Abbott Labs. Like that to
I,
me says scientist, right?
yeah, I'm a
So
scientist.
yeah, okay. So I call you a scientist, right?
Hmm.
So you can have even mob mentality, even with scientists believing something
That's
or
true.
not believing something. Like confirmation bias and things like that. Um, and it's not. I'm not trying to prove a point or anything. I'm just saying that like you can have that outside of religion too. So it's not just like
Yeah.
a purely specific religious thing that happens, or within a community of religious people.
Yeah, I guess it's just like my fears wrapped around it. Like I was intending to go to church to try and find the sense of community, but also in the back of my thought is like, if I get too involved with this community, am I gonna get sucked? Like, so I always have conflicting thoughts in regard to the whole thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and I think that's a lot of religious thoughts. Is they're all conflicting at
Hmm.
times. So what you mentioned that your dad had set you down at some point when you were young and was like, "Hey, this is why we don't go to church." What were some of the things that they presented to you that you still remember?
Some of the big things are a few of my relatives are homosexual,
Hmm.
and they today are still practicing Roman Catholic. And he has had conversations with them that he's kind of relayed to me and stuff like, what, why do you go? You were treated poorly when you were a kid by these nuns and stuff. As you grew to adulthood and recognized your sexuality and how your belief system approached it, didn't you ever have questions or concerns with how they're treating a group of people that you're associated with? And their responses most of the time were, it's about the faith. It's not about um, one individual pastor, priest's sayings or things like that or beliefs, but it's about the faith in God and carrying on and persisting. And that was something with him that he just couldn't understand. He was like, every
Hmm.
day you see different things that are a negative connotation between the Roman Catholic Church and homosexual people, or at least at the time when he was having these conversations. Um, and he just couldn't wrap his head around why they continued to practice when it could in some ways be towards their detriment.
Yeah, yeah, it's a tough thing to
Uh,
wrap your head around.
and he had also had gotten word that someone close to him had been molested as well, and I think
Mm,
that's one of the main things. So obviously, growing up, going to Catholic schools and things like that, he had many friends that were part of that as well, and I guess he had gotten wind that that had happened, and nothing was really done about it. And to this day, whenever he sees any news in light of something like that, it really sets him off.
mm,
Uh, so it's it's a continued kind of battle in the sense that I
yeah,
don't think he'll ever switch to being a religious person just because this is kind of ingrained in him now. And
yeah.
just hearing those stories over time has kind of shaped me as well, you know.
So, what age was he telling you these things?
I was in high school, most
Okay.
likely. I'm trying to
So,
remember back, but early high school is probably when we started having real conversations about why we do what we do and why other
yeah.
members of our family do what they do.
So, two main issues we've covered: gays in church, and the terrible, terrible things that happen to a lot of young boys and girls from priests or anybody affiliated with the church that has been widely documented. We don't need to get into that. Was there anything else outside of that, or is it just those main two issues of like, hey, this is why we don't go?
Um, Again, I think I always fall back on I don't think anyone could have the answers. And knowing that these institutions have been caught in lies in the past, it makes me hard to believe anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's a bias I'm going to have for a while. I don't know if that's ever going to change, but unfortunately, when I do see uh, news where it's like he said, she said sort of things, and I'm like back and forth, I don't know if I'll ever be able to take the side of the church or a church, any church.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of things that you're saying are ringing true to me too, honestly. I mean, but what? So I asked the question first for you of what do we believe now? We said agnostic. We've talked about Catholicism, it being super big part of your family, but not necessarily for your family unit specifically. So how do you think about the world? Like what was your moral compass as a kid? How did your parents teach right and wrong? And I, and again, I'm saying this question because I'm coming from a extremely Christian household where my dad was a pastor, and and growing up for me, whether you were Christian, Islamic, Jewish, not that I knew a lot of those types of people, but there's always that compass, that morality compass that any religion says, hey, you follow this, this is the way that you have to live your life. So not believing in that, I've asked this to other people that didn't grow up in a religious household. What was that for you? Like how did you discuss right and wrong, things to do, how to live your life, all that stuff?
I think we just kind of follow the very typical of do right unto others and rights will be done to you. And I feel like I kind of took that to an extreme in my mind, so much so that today I feel like I believe in karma a lot. So in the sense that if I do good, then maybe something good will happen to me later. If I do something bad, then the next bad thing that happens to me is because I did that bad thing. Um, so I think that, yeah, I think it was just the main thing was treat other people as you want to be treated. Just imagine, try to be as empathetic as possible. Think about what you're saying to someone else and how would it make you feel. And I
Yeah.
just kind of treated that with everything. So would you do this to yourself? Or would you be happy if someone did this to you? And that's kind of what I was taught and what I've kind of hung on to this whole time. And yeah, it's kind of evolved into more of a karma thinking, but mostly that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think a big part of Paige's and my childhood was what happens when you die. That the denomination that we believed in, the evangelical Lutheran Church, was all about kind of the next phase, not necessarily this life, but the next step. And if you don't do X, then you're not going to get paradise or whatever you want to say is up there.
Mm-hmm.
How? I mean, did you have people that had died when you were a kid, like a grandpa or an uncle or anything? And how did your parents describe what happens to a little kid when you're in family don't necessarily believe the easy thing to believe in, which is heaven, right? That's an easy thing
Yeah.
for a kid to grasp. Like, what was your sense there?
I mean, I did kind of benefit because my parents were not solid on what their beliefs were.
Mm,
My
which is kind of
dad,
cool, honestly.
yeah, so my dad would say to me either grandma's up there with all of her past relatives and she's in no more pain and things like that, or it's darkness and she can't even comprehend the lack of consciousness.
Right.
Time so. The way he kind of approached it was that either way, she's not in pain anymore, and uh, is in essentially a better place. Whether that be a utopia or no feeling at all, nothingness. Um, and my mom kind of had a different approach. She was extremely close with her parents, and unfortunately, those were the two closest relatives I've had pass away, both my grandmother and grandfather on the maternal side. My dad
Mm,
lost his father when he was very young. He died to cancer. So, and his mother's 95, still doing very well, very spry. So,
awesome.
and he's lost people too, but I think my mom, it's kind of fresh. So for her, she has more of a afterlife belief still. So she's not practicing. She doesn't really go to church, but she does take comfort in some religious ideals that are there. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's comforting, right? Like you lose
yeah,
parents. You and I haven't had to deal with that,
yeah,
but I have to imagine, even as an adult, it's extremely traumatic, and that's an easy way to think about it, right? And like even your mom
yeah,
has, like you've talked about your mom, and this is a very very common thing. I think for the older generation is like believing that cardinals are, reincarnated spirits or something, and they fly in your yard, and like your mom has gotten into that types of thinking as well. Like
yeah.
not even like God and Jesus centers, correct?
Yeah, yeah. I would say that her beliefs are kind of always they're not pinpoint, meaning that she just
Hmm.
likes, like you said, taking the comfort in those ideas. So if she believes that her parents are cardinals and they were reincarnated as such, or whatever, that brings her comfort, and she's content believing that. And even when the few times that we've maybe like approached it with more humor than seriousness, she it doesn't affect her that much because
Yeah.
it's the comfort it brings her, so it doesn't have to necessarily bring comfort to anyone else. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember when my grandma died, who you were very close with as well. By the way, the best story about my grandma and you is I had no idea that like my grandma was a drinker, right? Not in a
mhm.
bad way, but like she loved to socially drink, and she would have two drinks and then she'd be a little bit drunk and then she would stop. But one of the things, one time I get a text from Paige. I think we were still living in Seattle, and you and my grandma are drinking SoCo just on the rocks, and you're not a drinker either. So it was
Yeah,
really, really funny to see two people that, um, aren't best friends, just like drinking SoCo on the rocks. Like that's a college drink that you mix with
yeah,
Coke and you throw up later. So that's my favorite story about you guys just slamming SoCo together before she passed away. But even when my grandma passed away, like I would see a cardinal in the backyard and I'd be like, man, that'd be fucking cool if that was her. Just like checking in on me, and it's a comforting feeling, even if it's nuts, right? Like there's no way. But what
yeah,
if, right? Like there's always that
exactly.
question.
I always have the sense of I'm not gonna crap on that idea because again, like you said, what if? Like I that's kind of where I'm at these days in the sense of my agnostic beliefs. Every time I
Yeah.
hear a different theory about what the afterlife or just post death is like, I I eat it up. I like hearing all the different types of theories just because whatever it is, I think it's beyond comprehension, and it's interesting to hear what people have to think on it. I like speculation, I guess.
So you kind of walked into this question, pal. What's been the best theory that you've heard so far?
I think the one that I've been kind of sitting with uh, lately, and this is kind of more just a darker thought in the sense that afterwards, even if it is nothingness, meaning that when you pass away, lights go out. But what if heaven or hell is kind of your last moment? So people always talk about life flashing before their eyes, um, or those that have kind of passed away and come back and have kind of said that, or at least there's been people that have alluded to that thought that life flashes before your eyes when you're dying or die. Uh, and I was thinking from like a logical perspective in the sense that what if your heaven or hell for the rest of eternity is that moment of life flashing before your eyes? If you were a
Hmm.
good person, did good things, you saw those things, those deeds in your life as life flashed before your eyes. If you're a bad person, bad things, same thing. Those would flash before your eyes, and that in a sense would be a hell, right? If you're revisited with these old terrible things that you did in the past and maybe buried away. So I think that kind of rolls back into my beliefs about karma in the sense that do good unto others because what you want done to you. I'm sorry, I'm messing that up completely, but
No, you're good.
uh, I just have been sitting with that thought, and it just kind of resonates with me in the sense that even if that is the case, if there is nothingness, heaven or hell can be summed up into that last moment. If that's the case, then be as best of a person you can while you're living, because that's the moment you're going to be living in for eternity, right? So,
Yeah. We'll call that the TikTok theory, where you get one more TikTok the rest of your life, and it's either good or bad. It can be like a 30-second clip of like just flashes of goodness or flashes of badness. You like that? The
okay,
TikTok theory?
yeah, yeah, sure, TikTok theory.
Okay. Well, we might have solved it, pal. I don't know. We'll see if we can get people on board with that. I kind of like that though, of like you just get to relive amazing moments. What would be the moment that you would live the most?
Oh man, that's tough. I don't know. I haven't lived enough life yet to have a key moment. I don't think.
Being born, just that first
uh,
moment coming through. Hey, lights.
I feel like the shining through moments would be all the moments I cringed because that I
Well,
feel
you
like
cut out. I didn't hear that. You cut out. What
I
did you
said
say?
I feel like the moments that would shine through, unfortunately for me, would be all the moments I cringe because it happens all too often, and I just feel like, man, that would be like my loop. Like, see, you spent too much time cringing at stuff and not just taking it for what it was and just letting it roll off your back or whatever. That
Yeah.
would be
To be
my
fair,
hell
I've
of
seen
just.
you. Yeah, I've seen you in uncomfortable situations almost your entire life that I've known you, and I mean, I've seen you uncomfortable on a beach. You know, like you can get
Yeah,
uncomfortable in pretty unique situations. You know,
yeah, yeah. That's
so that's what you want. Just your entire life is
no, I
just
don't want
cringy,
that,
uncomfortable
but
moments.
I
Oh,
don't
gotcha.
want
That would be
that,
your
but
hell.
I just kind of feel like if that, in terms of what would be the prime thoughts in my head, would be like, oh man, remember that time you did
Yeah.
that? So
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all, man. So we got the TikTok theory in terms of the afterlife. I mean, you and Paige. I mean, Paige and I have talked a little bit about this, and we figured out, I think, on one of the first few episodes on this that she's agnostic, because of I titled her episode "I don't know" because
I
that's what we
don't
kept
know.
coming to. She's like she didn't have a lot of answers, and not that you should. It's okay to not know, but for you, your relationship with Paige, have you guys talked? I mean, I know she's extremely uncomfortable with death and
Yeah.
dying and people around her not being there anymore, which is
Hmm.
a very, very human thing, especially knowing where she comes from a religious standpoint and growing up with her. But your guys' relationship, does religion come up at all? Do you guys talk about it?
I think it came up more in the beginning because I had seen kind of face value that her dad used to be a pastor, and it kind of
Hmm.
scared me in the thought that, man, I
Which is
have not
totally
come from.
understandable, right? Like
Yeah,
you date, especially I feel like it's especially understandable from a guy's perspective when you're dating a girl. Like that the dad factor, good or bad, archaic or not, like that's still ingrained in my memory of like gotta impress the dad. And so when your dad's a pastor and
yeah,
it's the guy's only daughter, like I could totally see where you're coming from that perspective.
yeah. So I think I brought it up a good amount in the beginning in the sense of like what is your faith? Well, and I think at the time she told me exactly what she told you. I don't know, meaning I haven't
Yeah.
come from a strong religious background, but that doesn't mean my roots are so into religion. Um, so I think the conversation evolved as our relationship grew too to more important things like if we were to have children, what would that look like in the sense that
Yeah.
you were raised from a religious family? What approach would you want to take, having that, seeing that we don't really practice that much today? And the conversation where we've kind of landed on is that we'll probably end up leaving it up to them in the sense that maybe we'll try something non-denominational, meaning that nothing um, extremely specific, but just get the sense of community and things like that. So we've talked about it here and there, but mostly where we land is if it's something that our children want to do, we would be willing to go with them to a non-denominational church just to give them an idea of what it would be like. But from the get-go, I don't think either of us feel strongly about baptism or
Yeah.
confirmation. Um,
And there's probably not a lot of like my mom and dad are getting further and further removed from the church. My dad especially. My mom's I would love to have her on at some point, but she doesn't know where she feels or where she lands either because she grew up in this church for 60 years.
mhm.
Um, and I think your parents would be the same way, where you're not going to, maybe from your grandparents if they're still around by the time you have kids, of like maybe the external pressure will get to you, but I don't think you're going to have a lot of external pressure, which is
Yeah.
good, because you can kind of do whatever you want. However, do you really think a kid is going to ask to go to church? Maybe it happens, but I don't
No, but
know.
I think that the same way that I had questions about why don't we go,
Yeah,
would be questions that a kid would have in the sense that I see friends that do it.
yeah.
I see
What?
great aunt so and so do it. Why don't we? And I think that would
Yeah,
be the answer. Be like, this is how I came to where I am in the sense that I saw a lot of conflicting information in kind of turmoil around the church as I was growing up. My dad didn't really strongly believe, but if you, it seems like something you'd be interested in because maybe your friends have kind of painted it in a positive light, things like that. Totally fine. Go experience it because one, I don't want them to resent me for not giving that up them that opportunity. So I don't want to feel too strongly one way or another about what they want to do. I just think that it's going to happen later, meaning those questions will
yeah.
happen when they're 10 or 12 rather than
Naturally, right.
having a baby do a baptism. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
no,
just
I
like the
totally get it.
idea of them having the chance to witness it and see if it's something for them or not.
Would Would you and Paige say you have a little boy or girl, or are they them, as we say now? I don't want to be exclusive. You have a little kid, and they say my best friend is Islamic or Jewish. Like, are you going to temple? Are you going to fuck? I forget what Muslims call going to church. Oh, I feel like such an idiot. I just had for us on too. Anyway, whatever whatever they call
Yeah.
going to church as well. I don't want to be insensitive, but I just cannot remember. But anyway, what would you say if that was the case?
If that was the case, I think that I would probably either take the route of asking them, would you be willing to ask your friend if you could tag along and like kind of
Mm-hmm.
relay back like what your thoughts were on it and stuff like that. If they were to get more involved, like say they did do that and got more involved, I would probably want to see what was going on and ask if I could join in for uh, a session or two, you know.
Yeah,
Um, but I think that if they didn't have a friend, I would think I would take like kind of the literature approach in the sense that like a simple read on what this religion is and stuff like that. Kind of maybe if they're focused on one specific religion, maybe I would learn with them, you know, in the sense that I
right.
don't know, like I've never practiced this. All I could tell you is what I've heard and seen. But if you're interested in learning more, then let's pick up a book and check it out, or watch a documentary or something like that. Um,
Yeah,
in the sense, I'm not going to try and tell them something I know something about something if I've never been exposed. So as far as any other religion, I have no idea, and I think we'd have to take the more educational approach of going with a friend or getting a book.
yeah. Which is really cool to hear because I think like when my dad was on, we were talking about like, can you imagine having this conversation with your dad, my grandpa? We called him Papa. It's like no, like there was one church that you went to. It was a Christian church. Pick a one: Methodist, Catholic, Lutheran, non-denominational, whatever. Pick one, but that's the church, right? Whereas now, I feel like parents growing up, and as you and Paige start your journey, if that's what you decide to do, like that's a really cool thing to kind of bring into to society of like, hey, you whatever you believe, that's fine, for other parents, but like it's a personal thing, and most people join religion just based off what family does. And so
Yeah,
you have a very unique perspective on that because your family, the family, the extended family, all believes in the thing, but your dad is kind of the outlier there, and your mom is in agreement with that. Our family, we were super in it. We were like Shiite Lutheran, right? Like just like in it. And now not so much. And so I think that you've got two different perspectives on religion specifically for whatever template you want to create for, you know, anybody that comes after you, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, and I think that just we've seen it, and as time goes on, um, it's becoming less and less of a tough question. I think because of people's willingness to talk about what they believe. Like you
Mm,
mentioned, if you asked your dad, would you talk to Bappa about this? And he's like, no, because there was one church, and I knew if I brought it up, I'd get an earful. So
yeah.
I think people just didn't talk about it, and now that people are talking and being open about the fact that I have no idea. I mean, a good portion of people, not everyone. It makes it easier to talk about it in the first place.
Hmm.
So not, I don't think it's not just my perspective. I think that our generation is just figuring out how to handle it better because there's no certainty in our belief, at least for a
Yeah.
good amount of people. So that if our child came with to us with the thought of trying something different, it's not so jarring. It's not so world shattering. It's yeah, whatever you want to do. I mean, I don't know anything about it, but let's check it out.
Yeah, you're not bringing shame on the family. Not that our
Yeah,
grandpa would say that. That's what I mean.
yeah,
But like that's the interpretation of like that generation of like that's a different religion. You know, I know that most of the world is Islamic, but like not here, not in America. Is Christian or bust, baby. I
yeah,
feel like there's a sense of that, even if people aren't directly saying that.
yeah,
So we mentioned that you're a scientist, one of the best scientists in the U.S. currently, I
yeah,
believe.
sure.
Well published, well researched. But how how do you think about the universe in terms of religion? You and I have never talked about this. I've always been interested to hear what you say, but I'm very interested in the infantation. Oh, what's the word? Like the the smallness of humans as it relates to the rest of the universe. And I feel like you're a guy that is interested in that as well. Tell me if I'm wrong, but like, how do you view the universe as it relates to God and religion and here on Earth as humans? Like, do you ever think about that stuff?
I always think about, I mean, in my mind, uh, the universe is so vast, so incomprehensibly vast that we have just a fraction of the knowledge of what the universe is, what its purpose is, and etc. So I think it's comforting to know that like the pinnacle isn't here, like or at least having a thought that we humans we have a consciousness, we have uh, empathy, we have all these things, but it's just funny to think that we are the pinnacle. We matter the most. All of our feelings are the most important thing. I think that the most important thing is beyond human comprehension when correlating it to the vastness of the universe. I think that we're just a biological machine that could be a vessel for something bigger, and we're limited by our brain's limits, the bounds of our consciousness. So to me, it's just an exciting thought, and that's why I think I bounce from through multiple theories in terms of an afterlife because I don't believe in any single one, but occasionally I'll hear one and I'll think, well, that's a good one to believe, like or a good one to hope for, I should say. So a lot of these just kind of sit with me, and I guess one of my theories in terms of on a on a larger scale as far as the universe um, is that we know we come from the raw material of the universe. So when we die, we go back as the raw material of the universe, and that's such a vast thing that we have to be more than just our what's in our heads. What our thoughts are and what we're thinking every day, day to day. So or at least that's what I hope, right?
Yeah.
So as far as a universe perspective, that's what I feel. I feel like we can't even comprehend, and that uh, even trying to is there's you shouldn't attempt because you just can't, at least in the vessels we're in now. But who's to say that after we die we go back and turn it into stardust and start having a
Hey,
different
by the
level of
way,
consciousness?
Stardust was episode 12's title with Brett Taylor. How about
Call
that?
back.
Call back. How
We
do you
got
not get
continuity.
depressed with that? Yeah. How do you not get depressed though with that thought of
I like the idea that
my thoughts and my feelings don't even matter in comparison to the vastness of the internet or the internet, the universe.
I don't know. I guess I because I'm such an anxious person,
Can
I do
confirm. I can confirm that.
ruminate on thoughts of like, oh man, like I did this and that was the wrong thing to do and I wronged that person, even though if it's super inconsequential, meaning like no one, like say it was something really small, really, really small. I dwell on those things.
Dude,
Those are the things that
remember,
I wake up
dude,
to.
there's just name a restaurant that we've been to over the past 3 years, and we have a story of Jimmy being like, I don't know, man. Like, shit, should we tip more? Like, did I order the wrong thing? Like, I ordered this drink, but they didn't bring the right thing. Do I say anything? Like, I've seen it firsthand in the
So
best
I
way,
think
James.
think with that attitude, and I know I've been trying to get away with it. I've tried medications and stuff like that. Now I'm trying more of a
Now you make me look like an asshole. Like we're trying with medications and stuff.
as you're like, yeah, you idiots. No, I mean I've tried medications. I don't like them. They numb me out too much. I'm trying like herbal remedies like ashwagandha and stuff like that, and those have been helping as of late. But in terms of my beliefs and this feeling of like I like the idea of us being just a small piece of the broader picture because it puts less weight on me in the sense that I feel like every day
Hmm.
I'm putting weight on myself um, that I shouldn't be. So in terms of the final thought, the my final belief would be great if I like those little things didn't matter in the slightest. So again, I just go back to the thing that it's crazy to think that the pinnacle is here. So there's kind of a
Hmm.
beauty in the fact that like it doesn't matter. Like it's
You
I don't
want
know
you want less responsibility as a human to have to make those decisions because the universe is so vast. Fair?
exactly. You spelled it out better than I could. Yes.
No, I mean you spelled it out in the way that made me be able to come up with that. Which I I've never thought about that, honestly. Like I've never contemplated like usually the feeling is very obvious of the universe is so vast. You and I are in the Marvel movies, right? Like we see
Yeah.
space, we see, Chris Pratt flying around spaceships and Iron
Different
Man,
dimensions.
flying through this, yeah, different dimensions. Ant-Man's going whoever the hell he's going now. Like there's the fantastical, but in those movies it's attainable, right? Whereas right now, those things are just fantastical. They're not attainable yet. But why why should we put that much pressure on ourselves to be able to understand the unattainable, whether it's God, whether it's multidimensional travel, whether it's black holes, whatever it is? I've never been able to put it in that perspective because usually the perspective is that's fucking scary.
Yeah.
Like the fact that we are that small. And the only thing that I've ever heard of, which I brought up in the last episode or 2 episodes ago, is that the only way that brings me comfort is the fact that like maybe we are that special. Like for as much chances there are for other beings, other planets, or not planets, but other people walking around, other yous, other me's, like there's just as much possibility that none of that is
Yeah.
none of that's true as well. Like that's the only thing that's brought me comfort. But I've never thought about in the fact of like this pressure's taken off of me. In the same way that Christians look at God of that is taken care of. The afterlife is taken care of for me. The same way you're looking at it in a very similar way of like, why do I have to understand it? I don't have to understand it
Yeah.
because we are so small. That's
Yeah.
that's very interesting. 'Cause- interesting. 'Cause- 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 'cause-
when new things are discovered, like when you brought a black hole, when they had the image of a black hole and they showed like a light coming back out of the black hole, and they're like, what the heck? Why is light coming out of the black hole? So
Right.
our understanding, everything went in and mass was so dense that it turned everything to nothingness in there. Um, but to me, like when I hear those things, it's like, wow, like it could. I don't think we can be confident about anything that
Mm.
we discover and stuff like that. I think humans are so young in our species, and who knows how long we'll last. But I still feel like we're young, and are just on the tip of the iceberg in terms of the things that we could figure out. So obviously, every little thing that's new is going to be scary. But if you take it from the perspective that we don't really matter, and these things have existed before us, and we're just kind of slowly coming to the understanding them, it makes it feel more of a like achievement unlocked. You just learn something new rather than like, oh my god, we just figured out the world is horrible and now we know this and it's going to be over. Like I like thinking of it as we're learning new things, and what could that bring?
Right.
What could those discoveries bring? But thinking about those things in the sense that uh, this is scary and stuff, it helps me to think that it's inconsequential in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. Which I think again, to my point after you said that is like that's an interesting thought that I've never thought about before. How do you find happiness then in that type of universe where you are so small? Like, how do you obtain a feeling of comfort and I belong from not from a civilization perspective, but just from a human perspective? Like, how do you obtain that if the view is my life is so small that I don't need to understand all of this stuff?
Um, I think that I'm sorry. Can you say the question one more time? I got
Yeah,
lost
no, no,
in
no,
the.
it's totally fine. It's a big question. How do you feel like you can obtain happiness
Oh yes,
in a world that you created where your life is not your life, but like humans in general are not as important as the sun,
yeah, yeah,
or a star system or a galaxy or
yeah.
whatever it is.
I think it just helps to take life for what it is to me at this current moment, right? So like taking it day by day. So my current responsibilities are to save money for a house so that Paige and I could start our future. And each day I'm going to try and tackle that goal and take it day by day. So I think one of the things that I struggle with most is that when a problem presents itself to me, if I can't solve it right in that moment, I get anxious. I start dwelling, I start freaking out. So I think the only thing that can help bring me comfort in terms of that is just, you just got to take it day by day, because otherwise you're going to be sitting here dwelling and freaking out about stuff and your anxiety is going to get
Right.
even worse. So I try, again, I fall back on the thought that like do your best, because you are who you are, and that's all you can do is do your best. And at the end of the day, we're just specks in the grand scheme of things. So all you can do is take it day by day and do your best to be a good person and accomplish the goals that you have. So just going back to what I was saying, just take it for what it is. So right now we don't know if it's fantastical or what, but we know that in order one of the first steps to being happy is to be able to take care of yourself. So getting a solid roof over your head and stuff. So I think setting myself up with small little goals like that, or I mean, they're big goals, but and taking it one step at a time helps calm me down and feel accomplished in life, right? Like, so when you achieve those goals, it's a good feeling. So
Hmm.
I think at the end of the day, I just have to slow myself down, try and stop rushing. And the thought of being small, a very small part of the universe, helps me kind of take it slow, right?
Yeah.
Like take a breath. Like there's
Yeah.
billions of people all trying to do the same thing.
I feel like Jimmy, take a breath is We got to get T-shirts. I think for that. Either Jimmy take a breath or Jimmy sit down are two
Yeah.
T-shirts that we got to get. And for those that don't know Jimmy, Jimmy is a pacer, not from Indiana, the basketball team, like a legit pacer. Of like we'll be sitting there, it'll be 10 o'clock in the morning. We're having coffee, and James cannot sit down. He is pacing. He's up and about. He's thinking. He's using massage gun, playing with the dogs. Can't sit
Gotta
still,
stay
man.
busy. Gotta stay
Gotta stay
busy.
busy. Gotta burn those cows. So last question for you, Jimmy. Say you were presented with some sort of evidence or some sort of proof that wasn't 100% fleshed out. Say it's like 60% fleshed out that some scientists figured out somewhere that there is a god.
Hmm.
No religion attached, but that there is a god, there is an omnipotent being somewhere. Like what would your thoughts be? Like, how would you be able to come to terms with that, or would it be still some skepticism on your part?
I think I'd be scared, honestly, because
Mm,
and there's a really good movie that's out there. I think it's with Jason Segel. I think I'm saying his name
Jason
right.
Statham.
No, the one that it's in I Love You Man. I think it's Jason Segel. Um,
Oh, the pacifier.
what the? No, no, no. Oh, sorry, you're thinking of the movie. No,
Eight
I
is
don't. I
enough.
can't. We're never gonna get it. So
The Brady Bunch movie.
no.
Oh, okay.
Uh, so the movie has that exact same thought that you do. A scientist has discovered that there is an afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't know what religion it follows, but he knows that there is an afterlife. He's confirmed it. Shortly after he delivers his findings and say they were 60% flushed out, whatever, people start killing themselves
Oh shit.
uh, in the movie. And because they think that they're kind of moving on to a better place. So I think that if we were to get some sort of data like that, I would be really scared for how people would react.
Hmm.
Just because, again, I think a group of people is not smart. A person can be smart, but a group of people can't be. So when you start seeing other people doing stuff, again, mob mentality. So I just get afraid. I would be very afraid for what would happen to humanity and the value that someone would put on themselves, right? Like, so if you thought, oh, this doesn't matter, there's something better next, and you were confident on that, what would stop you from doing that? I know that in organized religion, suicide is you won't get into heaven with that, but say there was some sort of stipulation in this discovery that suggested otherwise. I don't know. I just don't think that people would handle it very well. So all I could say is I'd be scared.
Yeah. I mean, which is totally fair. I've actually never thought about that question before. Um, Jimmy, this is awesome, man. I think that you've given me a couple things to think about, and one of the biggest ones is just like the I've just never thought about it being a comfort that we're alone in the universe or that we're that small, however way you want to look at it. And I think that's an interesting perspective, not one that I think I want to think about a lot, but it's just something I've never really thought about before. Um, and
It's
dude, I just appreciate you coming on and sharing this type of stuff. Like I said, I've told this to everybody. It's such a personal thing, and I wouldn't be able to do the show without people like you. So I just appreciate you doing this.
of course. I've had a good time talking with you as well, and it helps me kind of flush out my ideas of what religion is to me as well when just talking about it because it isn't a in the forefront of my mind. So
Hmm.
just
Yeah,
talking about it kind of helps flush out some things that I might question too, just in myself and my own beliefs.
right, right. No, I think that's good, which is what this is all about. But at any rate, Jimmy, I appreciate you. I cannot wait, and I cannot say this, more sincerely. I cannot wait to beat the hell out of you in Halo 2 the next time that we play each other.
Oh, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. We're pretty evenly balanced, and I think I've been on the upswing. So I don't know, man.
You have. I will admit that. And I don't want to make excuses. I'm not an excuse guy, but like I have been playing a lot of Call of Duty, and I have just been on a run. I actually maxed out the levels on the online thing recently, so I'm at like 250. Can't go anywhere else. Gotta wait for season 2. It's been a really, really tough week for me because it gets boring.
Miles the gamer, going all in.
Gamer, baby. Going all in. All right, Jimmy, thanks again for coming out, man. Really appreciate it. Do you have anything to plug? What are you working on nowadays? You want to like plug a project or a website or an article you've been working on? You got a Twitter handle? Anything you want to promote?
I will promote. Actually, I don't know what she's doing anymore. I was gonna plug Paige's Etsy store, but I don't know if she's doing it anymore. So never mind. I better hold off on that.
I feel like every time she gets an order, she's like, "God damn it! Like this
Yeah,
is gonna take so
exactly.
much."
So
So,
I'm glad I
love it.
hesitated there.
All right. Well, if you happen to find Paige's Etsy store, you did it. Good luck. You did it. Congratulations, and buy something from her. All right, Jimmy. We'll talk to you soon, pal.
All right. Bye bye.